adults. There has been a considerable increase in COVID-19 cases at the Federal Correctional Complex in Terre Haute. Meanwhile, the Federal Bureau of Prisons has announced it will soon resume inmate visitation after halting it back in March. We'll have more for you on that change in just a moment, but first, a look at the numbers. The Federal Bureau of Prisons is currently reporting 69 active inmate cases at the United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute. 11 inmates and 2 employees have recovered there. 1 inmate died earlier this year. There are 50 active inmate cases at the Federal Correctional Institute. 2 employees are also sick. 1 inmate and 5 employees have recovered. Numbers are up by a few dozen cases after a little more than a week and a half. News 10's Heather Good has been following developments at the Federal Correctional Complex in Terre Haute since March. She continues our coverage now with more on plans to resume inmate visitation.
The Federal Bureau of Prisons plans to reinstate visitation for federal inmates next month in facilities just like these in Terre Haute. The BOP stopped offering visitation in March when it started logging COVID-19 cases in other facilities. The change comes as a welcome relief to inmates and their families, but a union leader representing employees here in Terre Haute says the BOP is making a potentially dangerous mistake. This is the memo the BOP released August 31st. It says social visiting will resume October 3rd. The memo also says it will be up to wardens at each facility across the country to come up with their own plan, but it must be in line with BOP procedures. Wardens, like the one here in Terre Haute, do not have a lot of time to come up with a plan. They have to submit them for approval by September 18th. It remains to be seen what exactly the plan will look like for the United States Penitentiary, Federal Correctional Institute, and the satellite prison camp in Terre Haute. But we do know the guidelines and procedures the BOP is mandating. Visits will be non-contact. This means wardens will have to come up with a plan to install barriers such as plexiglass in visitation rooms, or they'll have to ensure visitors and inmates stay at least 6 feet apart. The BOP wants wardens to come up with a plan that allows inmates at least 2 visits a month. Inmates in isolation or quarantine will not see visitors. Visitors will be screened for COVID-19 symptoms and must come with a face covering, and wardens will have to consider how they plan to make time for cleanings between visitors. I spoke with a union leader representing employees right here in Terre Haute. He says reinstating inmate visitation right now is a mistake. Vic Rubinacci is the AFGE Local 720 First Vice President. He says he's concerned about the change, calling it a completely poor decision on behalf of the BOP. He says it will only fuel the fire by exposing staff and inmates to people from across the country. Inmates and families I've talked to say it has been very difficult these past several months without in-person visits. They are welcoming this change, but they are also closely monitoring COVID-19 cases here and calling on the BOP to release more inmates to home confinement as outlined by the U.S. Attorney General back in March. In Terre Haute, Heather Good, News 10.